I found this poorly painted 1940s Art Deco dresser for just $12.99 at a local thrift store. Removing the layers of paint turned out to be one of the most satisfying parts of the process, but what was hiding underneath was something I never expected. One of the most beautiful discoveries I've come across in all my years of restoration. What I didn't know was the way this project would actually unfold, and the difficult situation I would find myself in halfway through. You see, I started this project back in December, and now it's almost April. The discoveries with this project just seemed endless, but here we are. It's finally complete, and I can't wait to share this with you. My name is Barry, and it's good to be with you again. Based on the Art Deco waterfall style, I believe this unique 6-drawer chest of drawers was manufactured sometime during the 1930s or 1940s. I would imagine that beneath the thick layers of paint and the severely damaged veneer lies a beautiful piece of history, but also a real challenge. I worked in healthcare for nearly 18 years, but these days I restore old furniture full-time, and I do my best to restore one furniture piece every week, sometimes two, but every once in a while, a difficult restoration project may last weeks or even months. That's the case with this old Art Deco chest of drawers. I started this project just before Christmas last year, which is why you'll see a Christmas tree in the background. Each restoration project usually takes about 20 to 25 hours, so really I only worked on this piece an hour or two each week, while completing other major restorations. As I work, I often look back at how this channel has evolved over the last 5 years, and I'm doing my best to document the journey. I think about all the highs and lows along the way, and it's often a bittersweet feeling. I'm convinced that most of you watching could also look back over the years and reflect on how your own craft has slowly developed. Not only do I need to strip all this paint and repair what's broken on this dresser, I also have to deal with these modern replacement drawer pulls, all 12 of them. This time, instead of buying something that might work, I decided to challenge myself once again, so I'm going to make new hardware entirely from scratch. Today it's about 65 degrees Fahrenheit in the workshop and about 35 degrees Fahrenheit outdoors, so I expect this paint remover to work the way it's intended. When I started this Art Deco dresser restoration, I knew right away that the original handles weren't coming back. They were either missing or had been replaced decades ago with modern hardware that just didn't belong. So I headed back to the Habitat store for some lumber. This time I chose walnut. I cut short pieces on the table saw, then ran everything through the thickness planer. A while back, Makera sent me their CARVERA Air desktop CNC machine, and it completely changed the direction of this project. When Makera sent me this CARVERA Air desktop CNC, I wondered how I might be able to incorporate this machine into my daily restorations. Truthfully, it was a bit intimidating at first, but what I realized was that this machine was not only able to handle the first job I had for it, making new drawer pulls from scratch, but it enabled me to make personalized detailed ornaments that I could give as gifts this year. It's time to scrape the old paint, and this time I purchased a more expensive scraper, and it really made a difference. I'm not scraping slowly to be dramatic. It's to make sure that the sharp blade doesn't gouge the veneer as I work across the curved surface. To many, this is simply scraping old paint, but it took me years to understand the privilege of working with your hands, regardless of the task. In this case, I have found there's a real joy in the art of restoration. For this project, instead of hunting endlessly for 12 reproduction handles, or settling for something close, I was able to design and make my own right here in my workshop. I first used the trace shaper to snap a photo of an old Art Deco handle I'd like to mimic. This helped me create a vector file that I could use directly with the CARVERA CNC. Using the CARVERA Air, I modeled new Art Deco inspired handles and cut several versions until I was satisfied with the results. The level of detail this machine can achieve is honestly impressive, with clean edges, crisp lines, and repeatability that's nearly impossible to do by hand. The quick release setup enables me to switch between bits in a matter of seconds. What I love most about the CARVERA Air is how much it can do in such a compact footprint. It's a fully enclosed desktop CNC with automatic tool changing, a built-in dust collection system, and an integrated probe that makes setup fast and accurate. There's no guesswork, no constant rezeroing, just reliable results. The rough edges left behind on these cutouts are not the fault of the machine, but instead represent the precision cuts from my original traced image, which was less than perfect. I must say, based on my own experiences, this paint removal was about as satisfying as it gets, but I would soon discover a major challenge. I'll use steel wool and fine brass brushes to remove as much of the paint as possible from the areas where the scraper may cause significant damage. This is the other part of the Art Deco drawer pulls I'm attempting to mimic, so I'll snap a photo, create a vector file for the Makera software, and cut out 12 of these from a piece of walnut. These will need a little more attention, but I'm pleased with the results, so I'll revisit this part of the project a little later. It was this moment I discovered two major problems and knew there was no way I was going to finish this project by the deadline I set for myself. Notice the major wrinkles in the veneer on the side of this dresser. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to address that yet. And then I realized most of the veneer on the base of the dresser was missing altogether. These two problems represent several more hours of detailed work. Using a few pieces of oak veneered plywood, I made several more ornaments for some of my family members. There's still a lot of paint to remove from this old dresser, but the drawer fronts are mostly dry, and some parts are just easier to remove the paint with an orbital sander and a 150 grit disc. When I first purchased this old painted dresser, I could see that there was significant damage hiding underneath, but it wasn't until I completely sanded one section at a time that I began to realize just how much damage there actually was. I'll use a 2-part walnut colored epoxy filler to fill most of these voids. These curved drawer fronts are part of the Art Deco design, but will be more difficult to sand. They're still covered with a thin layer of veneer, so sanding with any flat sander could quickly burn through the veneer and potentially cause irreversible damage. Sanding this first drawer front completely was a test of sorts. I wanted to see, with all of its significant damage, if these drawer fronts were even worth saving. And once I poured on a little mineral spirits and wiped it clean, I could certainly tell that these definitely were worth saving. I believe this is some type of walnut burl veneer, perhaps. I don't care much for the design of these pieces that make up the base of the dresser. I think they were intended to conceal the casters, and this old dresser won't be restored completely back to its original condition, but I would like to get as close to that as possible. So whether I like these base pieces or not, they're still part of the dresser, and I intend to keep them. I decided it would be much easier to remove these, not only to strip the paint, but to make the necessary repairs. This thin veneer on the side of the dresser wraps around the front of the dresser and is peeling away in many places, so I need to address this. Sometimes this restoration work can be tedious, but I still feel blessed to be able to do something that I love. With each project, I often find myself being slowed down with little details like this, which is why I can safely say, if I determine a restoration project may take 10 hours to complete, doubling that time is usually more accurate in the end. Beyond the handles, I've been using the CARVERA Air for all kinds of shop details. I've engraved brass plaques for furniture restorations, signage for the workshop, and even custom Christmas ornaments, everything from flat engravings to more dimensional designs using the fourth axis. I found this leftover oak from an old dresser that belonged to my grandmother, and I think I'll use some of it for one of the Christmas ornaments. All this time I was waiting for the paint remover to set up, but this was the moment when I really started enjoying creating these little ornaments, mostly out of recycled furniture pieces. Although I spent more time on this than I had planned, it was a nice break. I did, however, worry that my viewers would not be as interested in this type of content, and that's okay. I've never considered myself to be an artist, but I do think restoration and preservation is an art form, and I really enjoy exploring creative ways to repurpose old lumber like this. When I mentioned at the beginning of this video that this was one of the most beautiful discoveries in all my years of restoration, I was referring to this beautiful burl veneer across all the drawer fronts. I don't know how else to describe it. It's not rare, but it's just so beautiful, and I want to do everything possible to preserve it. So I'll simply fill the damaged areas with a 2-part epoxy that I'll attempt to color match later. Wherever I find loose veneer, I'll apply a little CA glue and spray on some accelerator to help it dry quickly. It's not uncommon for thin veneer to buckle like this as it expands and contracts due to exposure to moisture or extreme temperature changes. I used an X-Acto blade to cut lines in the veneer, hoping to flatten out the wrinkles with a hot iron. This did seem to help, but it wasn't good enough considering how much damage there actually was. I purchased this dresser more than 6 months ago, and it was an impulse buy in the moment. In fact, I don't recall even noticing this much damage on the side as I purchased the item. But here I am now, having to face this challenge. I decided it would be much better to just cut out all the damaged sections and just replace this with new veneer. It will be difficult to wrap the new veneer around the dresser, so I'll cut out the old veneer, leaving a clean line just a few inches from the edge. I don't think this will be too obvious in the end, but I suppose time will tell. I purchased a small roll of mahogany veneer from the local woodworking store and proceeded to replace small sections on the side of the dresser. I'm not so sure this is the best way to replace the veneer on the side, because there may be visible lines along the joints, but this is just the side of the dresser after all, and it should be better than the way I found it. I'll roll on contact cement to each section, wait until it's tacky, then lay down the new veneer. Although it is warm in the shop, I did worry about how this contact cement would dry since it was minus 17 degrees Fahrenheit on the day I attempted these repairs, but I think it turned out okay. With most of the major repairs completed, I can finally focus on sanding this entire dresser. Of course, I'll continue to find more paint, but will do my best to remove it with steel wool and this afterwash product. It's similar to mineral spirits, but I find that it works much better. On average, I would say these larger restoration projects take about 20 to 30 hours from start to finish, and I would say the detailed sanding for something like this will take at least 8 to 10 hours. I'm mostly using hand sanding tools and these Surf Prep electric sanders, sanding from 150 grit to 220 grit, then finishing every section with a fine sanding sponge. It's worth mentioning that these Surf Prep sanders are approximately $600 each, so they're not cheap, and they're the most expensive restoration tools in my entire workshop. But if you plan to do a lot of this kind of work, I find that they're one of the best investments. However, they aren't necessary. You can achieve similar results with a $50 electric sander. It just may take a little longer. This CARVERA machine handles wood, acrylic, aluminum, and brass with ease, and the Makera software makes it approachable, even if a CNC machine isn't your background. I can go from a design idea to a finished product without leaving my workbench, and that opens up so many creative possibilities. For me, the CARVERA Air isn't just a tool, it's a way to stay true to a piece's history while still making something new. Whether it's period-correct hardware, small reproduction runs, or meaningful details that finish a restoration the right way, this machine has earned a permanent place in my shop without question. If you're someone who loves making things and wants precision without the industrial footprint, the Makera CARVERA Air is absolutely worth a look. If you want to learn more about the Makera CARVERA Air or see the exact setup I'm using, click the link in the video description below. It helps support the channel, and it's a great way to explore what this machine can do for your own creative projects. For several weeks, I moved on to other projects, and I spent time with friends and family. My focus shifted to planning all the projects and challenges for the new year. I'm a planner, and I'm not sure if this will make sense, but sometimes I focus on being overly productive in other areas of my life just to avoid working through the difficult challenges of the project in front of me. I wonder if there's a name for that, and I wonder if you've ever found yourself doing that. Sometimes, without even realizing it, months quickly pass by. Although difficult, we have to say goodbye to some things to make way for new beginnings. With a restoration like this, it's difficult to know where to stop with the work. Everywhere I look, I find more work to do, and it can be frustrating. I've been reading this book about the story of a craftsman, and as I continue working on all these detailed repairs, I was thinking more about what the author said. Working on your craft is not always going to yield perfect results, but you often know when there's more you can do, or when you can and should do better. I think this thin layer of veneer on the top of the dresser is just the substrate, and I know in my heart that I should make an attempt to make this better, so I'll apply new walnut veneer. This is a restoration piece that has no sentimental value to me. I just want to learn as much as I can from it. I decided to try wood glue to apply the veneer, and although you can do this, I found that it didn't work as well as contact cement. You could face problems with the water-based wood glue soaking into the thin veneer and causing wrinkles or bubbles. After all this trouble, I eventually spread on contact cement. Once dry, I simply used a hot iron to reactivate the adhesive wherever I found small bubbles or wrinkles, and this seemed to work well. Throughout this project, with all the different veneer repairs, this dresser has slowly morphed into something I know won't be perfect. I'm proud of my work, but at the same time, I understand this piece won't have much resale value. There was just too much damage, and in this case, the layers of paint did diminish the value. I still have a plan for it, which may actually make you cringe. Time will tell. Occasionally, when 3 to 4 weeks pass between my restoration videos, many of you check in on me to make sure I'm okay. I appreciate that, and I can assure you that things are going well. At the moment, I'm working on 4 different projects, but I don't like to rush videos just for the sake of publishing new content. I appreciate your patience, and I'm excited to share my plan to release several new videos in the coming weeks, with a variety of poorly painted, vintage, mid-century classics. And for those of you who might be bored of the painted pieces for now, I'm also working on a few very large, unique industrial antiques. I decided to cut these new poles in half, which will take some time with this entry-level bandsaw. I'm hoping to achieve a very slim, streamlined profile that will not draw attention away from the beautiful grain patterns on the drawer fronts. A few more weeks passed, and I enjoyed some traveling, but I'm home now and finally ready to apply the final finishes to this old dresser. I'll use a foam brush to wipe on a light walnut oil-based wood stain. I mixed this Finisher's Choice lacquer sealer with a little blush retarder. This sealer will protect the wood from exposure to moisture and also provide a nice base coat for the color matching. Thanks to the support from my patrons, I purchased a new $230 HVLP sprayer, which was an incredible upgrade compared to the $30 sprayer I've been using for years. Once I have the first coat of sealer on, I can begin mixing lacquer with different colors of powder stains to conceal the wood filler repairs. I've not perfected this skill yet, but have learned to start with the lightest color first, and gently brush on additional colors to match the original grain. I mentioned earlier that some of you may cringe because I've been using this refinished dresser for tool storage in my workshop, but I'm sure it will eventually find the right home. Learning a lot of these refinishing and restoration skills on old forgotten pieces over the years has certainly led to some amazing results, but not once have those skills led to perfection, and I'm okay with that. Throughout this project, I expected that there would be some contrast between all the colors on the drawer fronts, but the middle drawer turned out much darker than expected, as you'll see. I believe this is mostly just the natural color of the veneer sheet that was used, but let me know what you think. My name is Barry, and I truly appreciate you joining me for another restoration. There are some incredible story pieces coming to the channel, so I'll see you very soon. Goodbye for now.